outtake section of our stuff. Hey guys, welcome to the Let's Talk About It Minot podcast. I'm your host, Rob Fuller, with my trusty sidekick, Jonathan Starr here yet again. Got some a lot of fun things to talk about, I think. We have a federal a speech that was given the other night that I think we can talk about, and not much statewide with crossover going on right now. Obviously, there's your Dunseath debacle, and there's more being played into that from what I heard and saw last night and this morning.
Messed up, man. It's messed up stuff.
Yeah, and trying to figure out what they're thinking down at Beck TV. But anyway, we'll get into that. And then quite a bit, just an average city council meeting, 3-hour city council meeting, not much going on.
There was no fist fights, so that's good.
Is that what you guys look for now when you go to those meetings? You want to see fist fights?
Blue Rider has to have that on their bingo card.
I still have yet to get those guys from Blue Rider. Again, I don't necessarily want to see the card so we can help somebody get bingo.
Yeah,
I just want to see what's on it the day after. What was bingo card last night? What was bingo card? Because that'd be kind of funny.
We gotta get that figured out with them. So, have that on our Tuesday podcast following.
Yeah.
Where we go through that. Yeah,
well, I think that would be entertaining, like, hey, this is, did this happen? We could kind of figure out who won last night or how they won or what was the winning, instead of being bingo or G68 or 068 or whatever it is like, oh, Blessum did this and that's your winner, or Fuller did this.
Exactly.
And, so that'd be hilarious.
That's a good idea.
Right.
I like it.
We'll have to reach out to them. So how's everything been going for you guys?
Oh, it's been busy. We've been busy with state stuff.
Yeah.
Pretty solid interviews going on. We got a really cool one that's coming up next Thursday with, I think you.
You guys got me doing another one of these roundtable things. Now, who you're bringing in a special guest this time?
Zach Rackner.
Okay.
He ran for state office before, or for federal office, and he's involved in District 5 DIM and PL.
Okay.
So
we are polar opposites. Is what you're saying, and you're. Now I know where you're getting your confrontational fist fighting.
Yeah.
You're looking for.
Like we might need a moderator.
Are you looking for something to go viral next week?
Yeah, we've been struggling with some things, and we're like, might be the way. No, I'm kidding.
Oh, I look forward to it. That should be fun.
Yeah, it'll be a lot of fun. Actually, honestly, that one's going to be interesting. I'm really looking forward to it with Zach. But I think just that format is going to be really neat for the area as we go and have more. We're going to call it unfiltered, and have discussions like that.
Nice.
I think it'll be really, really solid.
I thought it was, the one we did a couple weeks ago. I thought it was a great format, and I heard from a lot of people that thought it was entertaining and fun, and so the other thing too, I pay attention to weird stuff like that. Always just seeing if people are paying attention or not. The city council meeting from the other night, there's like 5,400 views on Facebook of that meeting, and which is great in my mind because it shows me the community is starting to pay attention and get involved now.
Is that the one where there was the Gerhardts were there, or are
you
were talking the next one?
No, the one just from 3 nights ago.
That's awesome.
And I didn't even go back and look, but like that to me is wonderful because I think. At least when I was looking to run for city council and everything like that, we didn't feel that people were engaging and we, people were complaining, but the city wasn't responding or listening, in our minds. And so I think that's great because, now, you see more engagement from the citizens and the community. And I think that's awesome.
And now you guys have some public, like neighborhood meetings with, I believe.
Yeah, we got 4 neighborhood meetings coming up here in the next 30 days, I believe.
Looking forward to those?
I think they'll be interesting to go out. Again, they said we don't have to go as council members, but they would encourage us to go. And I'm like, well, why wouldn't we go?
Right. You were at the State of the City. You'll be there?
Yeah. I want to hear from people. I like talking to people and finding out, what they're happy with and what they're not so happy with.
Yeah, so. Absolutely. That'll be a good time. We'll have to get one, done virtually too, maybe one day.
That would be, there you go. That would be cool. Do the neighborhood meeting from the Dakotan.
From the Dakotan.
Yeah,
I think that'd be a good time.
Absolutely.
Want to ask questions online.
Yeah,
a lot of good things. No, I still love Minot. I'm excited for the direction of Minot.
Oh, I'm absolutely. I wouldn't trade. I've lived in a couple different places. Obviously, I lived in Grand Forks when I went to college. I lived in Colorado for about 16, almost 17 years. there's in my mind, honestly, and when you're at the point in your life where you're having kids and raising a family, honestly, to me, there's not a lot of better places to at least raise a family. Every town, every city, every state has their issues, right? Or their problems or whatever it is. And you can always pick those out. But Minot's a great community. People are helpful around here as far as helping out their neighbors and everything. So I was born and raised here. I went away. I never, ever stopped calling Minot home, right? I'm going to go home. I'm going to go home. And to me, it'll always be home, whether I'm here or not. Hopefully, I'm here. But Minot's a fantastic place. And, it's got that small town feel. So it's still a little backwards like some of the other towns, but then it's also got, some of the big town amenities, which is nice. So
it does. And they keep growing, potentially a second hospital.
Yeah.
A lot of things.
All those things are good.
Horizon.
Yeah. All those things are good. Now,
no
if we
Chick-fil-A.
could, well, again, at Chick-fil-A, I believe they have an 80,000 population minimum.
Well,
so
they claim we're 50,000 and we're not.
We're not. No, we're like 47.
Why can't we claim we're 80,000?
So you want to go to that next metric just to get Chick-fil-A?
Just to get Chick-fil-A.
Wow.
Man, you are
at Chick-fil-A. No.
We gain funding probably.
Well, you'll have to put something in if you want the Chick-fil-A because you're going to have to be the guy to probably franchise it. So
yeah, well then that's not going to happen.
Eat all your own profits.
Yeah. Hey, it's neat because they're closed on Sunday, so I can continue going to church.
There you go. Yeah,
it's good.
Yeah. So
interesting stuff.
Yeah. What about what'd you think of the speech the other night to the joint session of Congress? Not a State of the State or State of the Union, but
that's what we all call it, right?
Yeah.
I thought that there was a lot of theatrics.
Yeah.
I saw a meme somewhere about Zelensky sitting on the side of whatever, talking to the gentleman that was removed from.
Oh, Al Green, the
Al
Democrat.
Green.
Yeah.
He's like, "Oh, did you get kicked out too?"
That's awesome. It's sad to see that. Like, and all the memes and all the social media outrage. You're like, really, you can't stand and applaud for a child that's been fighting cancer for 6 years. You can't empathize and give sympathy to the mothers of the daughters that were killed by illegal immigrants because your political ideology is so much more important than what's going on really in people's lives. And to me, the theatrics, the screaming and yelling and the getting kicked out, all of that, hopefully, in my mind, the Democrat Party needs to change. And hopefully this is kind of, you're either going to change or you're going to disappear, the beginning of the end of that party maybe, because they have gone so far out of the norm of what I think the standard deviation of Americans believe and want to see. Again, you have 45 Democrats in the Senate. The Democrats back in the day when it was first brought up, Title IX, were the ones that were championing Title IX so women had the advantage in sports. Now, they won't say a word if a man wants to compete against women. In fact, 45 Democrat senators voted against it so it couldn't get out of the what do they call it, cloture vote to go to the next, So I don't know where they're coming from. I don't think the majority of the American people can understand where they're coming from. So, hey, if that's their course, they'll be like the dinosaurs. They'll be extinct before long. So
tariffs are finally in place.
I think that's awesome.
I think it's awesome.
Well, look at, let's talk about tariffs for a second, and let's use Canada, because Canada is really kind of irritating me, like as far as what Trudeau is saying and stuff like that. So for everybody out there that isn't familiar with tariffs, the way tariffs normally work is if you produce something in your country and another country produces it and ships it over there, you put tariffs on the products that are similar to what you make. So they hopefully buy American or buy Canadian or whatever it is. Does Canada produce cars? Do you know? Is there any car manufacturing in Canada? No. And Canada puts a 45% tariff on automobiles being imported into Canada. They don't make cars. So why are they tariffing those cars? And they've been doing that for about 40 years. Wow. So, again, they put a tariff on there to make it more expensive to their citizens. Like, and Trudeau and those guys can say all they want. Oh, you know what? Don't go spend your money in the United States. They're doing bad to us. They're going to hurt us. what actually has hurt Canada and its citizens is 10 years of failed monetary policy and leadership in Canada.
And it shows so bad that Trudeau's on the way out.
Yeah. Well, I mean, he was so bad on the way out that his finance director quit. And that was like, oh, gosh, I'm screwed here, aren't I? So I'm going to resign and wait for the next election.
Yeah.
So
right.
I don't know. I mean, I think tariffs, if you have a tariff on our goods,
right.
You know, I mean, they do the same thing on beef and milk and eggs and everything going across the border both ways. You know, they tariff all of our products. Why should we not tariff theirs? Why if you're going to do it to us,
right?
Why wouldn't we do it?
Yeah, no.
So
I think that's all fair. I think that there's a lot of overreactions that are going on. A lot of people are making it based on feelings, and it goes back to us I think it goes back to us kind of just being a country that is supposed to support the world and everything. And
well, again, it's not our job.
Those days are over.
My tax dollars anymore should never go to take care of somebody else in another country or somebody coming here illegally.
Supreme Court didn't like how USAID was doing it, or how what Doge was doing to the USAID.
Well, but it's just $2 billion of what they found, and they said from what I was reading. They said you have to pay that because it was for work already completed.
Gotcha.
It wasn't for something coming up. So I guess I can see that, but they didn't say anything about the rest of it, did they?
Nope, they didn't.
No.
And stuff like that should be expected, that there be back and forth.
Well, absolutely. You know, they're going to, but I think the bigger point with Doge, and we've talked about this before, isn't necessarily the lawsuits and what you think is right or wrong. It's the sheer waste that they are showing the American public that is going on in our federal government. I'll be honest, until you get your shit straightened out, excuse my French, this is going unfiltered, right? Until you get your stuff figured out, I would encourage everybody in this country, don't pay them a damn dime in taxes. You know, I mean, they waste our money.
Right.
You know, and they hired 80,000 IRS agents last year to make sure that the $600 you were getting from Venmo or PayPal was, but they don't want us auditing them and how they spend our money.
Right.
I think we need a reset in this country. I really do.
Yeah. They want, that whole deal is interesting. I think let me say this. Part of the frustration with it is that Elon Musk was appointed. You can have your qualms about Elon Musk being the dude, but I think the only way that it's effective is if someone is appointed, not somebody is elected in.
Yeah.
Because then you're going to have people saying, okay, I'll vote for you, but don't touch this.
Yeah. Well, and I think obviously to your point, the best thing about that is Elon is appointed. He has no political left-leaning. I mean, for the most part of his life, he was a Democrat, and he'll tell you that. Yeah. And lately, you know, like I said, last time he voted, I believe, for Trump, or at least he says he did. But the guy doesn't care what political affiliation you are. He just cares if you're wasting money.
Right.
And I think to me, that is wonderful because, again, like you said, you can't do it to somebody that's elected because they could be bought or swayed or whatever. Elon's kind of like that tornado. He's just coming through whether you want him there or not. Yeah. So
Canada's pulling off.
Yeah. Now, just to back up for 1 second, I told people not to pay taxes. I meant do that legally, like finding write-offs and whatever. I'm not suggesting you go ahead and subvert paying your taxes.
For more financial advice, talk to Rob Floyd.
So anyway, but how'd you think he did with the speech? I mean, did you listen to it?
I didn't listen to it in full. I got bits and pieces of it, but social media brought. I mean, I think what I took in of his speech, it was it's Trump, man.
Yeah.
And he does a good job of putting people, accepting what people do, not getting frustrated at the action, but then say, okay, you did this, now this is what that means.
Yeah.
And putting people in corners that they are not wanting to be in.
Well, you know, they don't think about how that could be painted another way, right? Yeah. They look at how they did it and they're like, oh, we're going to be the champion for whoever it is. Yep. And Trump's like, hey, excuse me, you look kind of silly, you know? Yep. And I mean, I thought, you know, like, and one of the things that stood out to me was after political speeches, you know, you talk about Biden and you've talked about some of the other ones in the past, they always call speech is divisive, right? You're trying to separate the. There was nothing in that speech in my mind that was really divisive at all. He was talking to Democrats like, hey, why don't you guys work with us, right?
Right.
And the thing that was really telling was afterwards, CBS put out their polling results, if you saw that. And of all the people that watched that, right, they asked, and they didn't care if you were Democrat, Independent, or Republican. What did you think of the speech? Was it a good speech? And do you feel better about America's trajectory after the speech? Mm-hmm. And almost 70% in both instances said, yes, the speech was a good speech. And yes, we feel better about the direction of the company or the country.
Right.
So
how about, well, first off, Speaker Mike Johnson had his hot mic moment.
Oh, dude, that was fantastic with him and J.D. Vance. Yeah, it's really tough when you're listening to Biden and he's giving a campaign speech and you're like, oh, that was so good. That had to be on purpose because you saw him put the mic down, so they knew the mics were live.
He was trying to at least act like he was trying to avoid his hot mic moment.
Yeah.
That was good. It would probably be hard to sit behind Trump because, for this reason, your face is uber examined.
Oh, yeah.
And it happened to them, like, for instance, when he made his joke about Elizabeth Warren.
Yeah. Pocahontas?
Yeah. And Speaker Mike Johnson tried to not laugh.
Yeah.
J.D. Vance can do whatever he
doesn't
wants.
care. Yeah. He's like, that was hilarious, right?
Yeah. And Speaker Mike Johnson was trying to be respectful. And he's like, nah.
Yeah.
Kind of gave in.
Well, and similar to that, so the Zelensky thing that happened in the presidential office, whatever it was, a week or so ago. And I didn't understand all of it at first because you're just seeing pictures or clips, but you're not. So he called J.D. Vance a name in Ukrainian. I don't know. Are you aware of that?
No.
So he called J.D. Vance. When they were talking about stuff, you hear him start talking Ukrainian, and at that point, they're not translating it on the screen. But at that point, did you see the Ukraine ambassador that was sitting in the crowd? She was like this.
Right.
So he called, from what I have been able to track down online in Ukrainian, he called J.D. Vance a bitch.
Oh, no.
Yeah. And so as soon as he said that, in Ukrainian, nobody had any clue, but the people that spoke were Ukrainian.
Right.
And she was like, oh my God, what are you doing? Like, I don't know. I mean, it's hard, honestly, any of that stuff with Trump and Vance and I'm sure it's hard for people because some of the things that happen and are said are so unexpected, right? Like, I'm sure Zelensky didn't expect J.D. Vance to stand up and say, hey, that's disrespectful, right? Let's not do that right now. You're here for something else, and he wants to argue about things. Well, he spent the hour before or whatever with a bunch of rhinos and Democrats that were telling him not to sign anything with Trump. And it's like, if you guys are going to work against the American public and our government, maybe it's time you be done in Congress or in this world.
So Vance went hard on, you're not going to go and litigate this in front of the American media.
Right.
Maybe he didn't even say American. He may have just said media.
Media, yeah.
Do you buy into the theory that Zelensky went into an area of conversation that they had agreed not to touch?
I don't know. Did they? If they said that, I hadn't heard that. Okay. Right? I haven't heard that they had an agreement on what they would talk about and what they wouldn't talk about.
I heard that there was some stuff that, like, this is what we're going to do. Just, it's going to be cut and dry. Obviously, anything with Trump is not going to be cut and dry.
Right.
But there was some areas that they weren't going to go into. And then Zelensky went, basically after Vance said something, Zelensky went to an area where it was supposed to not have
off limits. Okay.
Yeah. That could be wrong. That could be right. Who knows?
Well, I mean, that could help everybody maybe understand a little bit why, there was like, hey, hold on a second. We've all agreed to this, or, that's disrespectful.
Yeah.
It would make sense. I mean,
Ukraine people, a parliament member from Ukraine was saying that we need to get rid of Zelensky, that Ukraine needed to get rid of Zelensky. You got Lindsey Graham, who is jumping off the Zelensky train, and he's been on that for decades.
Right. Here's my question. If you don't truly want peace because you're getting rich off it, you're probably not the right guy leading the country, right?
Yeah. Well, I think ultimately it shows that Zelensky's a terrible negotiator.
Yeah.
Because
if that was a negotiation, he needs to go back to school.
Because then he comes back 2 days later.
Yep.
Has a X video saying, we're sorry, we're ready to talk.
Yeah.
Mineral rights back on the table.
Whatever Trump and his administration want. Yeah.
We're good to go. And then 2 days after that, he's like, no, we're not doing
Yeah.
it.
Like,
It's, come on, man.
I think he might be bipolar. You know,
Or he's bought.
Yeah. Well, he's obviously bought, right? The guy was a comedian. He has got 5 freaking homes across the world. He's got 2 $40 million yachts. Like, I don't think he was that successful of a comedian. So where's all the money coming from, right?
Right. Yeah.
You know, I mean, but you can't prove anything.
No,
So
it's
that's all
difficult to prove.
hyperbole.
But yeah, definitely something doesn't add up right there.
Well, there's a lot of things that didn't add up, right? Just like all the money that was funneled from Ukraine through the cryptocurrency place and then back to political candidates in our country. Funny how
Surprise.
it's odd, isn't it? So
That's where Trump got all his money.
yes, that was Donald got all his money from that. I think, you know, AOC and some of the others that are worth so much money too, I think that's where their money may have come from. So
potentially.
but anyway.
Very interesting.
And not like state-wise, not much happening right now. We're in crossover.
Which property tax bill you rolling with?
None. Do it right, please. Quit giving us Band-Aid fixes with buy downs and caps. Go in there, make sure everybody in the state has to pay property tax. Don't cap the cities, and I think you'll see that that's the right thing.
How aggravating is it?
Watching that?
Yeah. After there was Measure 4, and I said it on Indie Talk, like, I mean, at the end of Measure 4, I was kind of wavering. I wasn't as much a fan. I was talking more bad about it than good. And then now it's like, give me Measure 4.
Well, you're absolutely right. Like Measure 4, if that had gone through, and I think a lot of people are realizing that now, would have forced them to do the right thing.
Yeah.
Right now, all they're doing is like, hey, we're doing the right thing. Well, kind of, sort of, you know. Yeah. And I mean, and they still haven't even got it worked out. I think there's still 4 or 5 competing bills.
Yeah, there's at least 3, yeah.
So I don't know. For me, it's very frustrating because they all said, yeah, we hear you loud and clear, North Dakota. We hear you. We're going to fix this. This isn't a fix. Because, I mean, you know, they've already brought down the number, too. I think they said, you know, somebody making about a $10,000 property tax payment, you know, you're going to be almost in 10 years completely paid for. Now that's come down to, it's like 60%. So now all of a sudden you're only going to get $6,000 each year, you know, and I mean, that will keep happening until we shove it down their throats again. So I guess. Well,
you talk about keep it local, all that stuff, but the citizens of North Dakota are depending on the state to keep making money, to be able to keep providing increase in spending. And that's one thing Measure 4 didn't do it. Measure 4 said we only have to provide what was being paid out right now.
Sure.
And cities are going to have to figure out how to get revenue
beyond that.
Yeah. Right.
And that's what, you know, you can use sales tax and some of those other things because that's what would have happened, right?
Yep. Service fees.
Yeah, you use a consumption tax, basically. Yep. People, the more they buy, the more they pay in. And
it's a novel idea.
Well, it works, you know, I mean, it works. Like we're going to, when we get into the city stuff, some stuff came up the other night, you know, there was a consent item that was added about an hour before. Oh yeah. Yeah. That, and at least, and I'm going to use the word snuck in there. I wouldn't say it was snuck in there. They send out an email, but the problem ultimately becomes that, hey, we altered the agenda, which comes out on Thursday, right? We get the agenda Thursday at 4:30. And I'm just going to say this because I'm going to also bring it up. I think we need more time as a council to be able to research some of this stuff. Like in my mind, when you get something at 4:30 on Thursday afternoon and you have to look through all these agenda items, and if there's any research that needs to be done, you have Monday and Friday, or Friday and Monday to try and get in front of people and ask questions. Now, if you work a regular job and you got everything else going on in your life, kids, family, whatever, how is that possible to do? Yeah. Like, you know, I guess, and we talked about this before a little bit, I've said, you know, people got on the council and they didn't do anything. Like, well, sometimes the city doesn't give you the option. So I think it would be ideal if they could start getting us the packet the Monday before. So if we have council on the following Monday night, the Monday before we get it. So that gives us a full week that we can meet with people and ask questions and do everything.
And then basically, if then something could be added that week,
right? If they add it,
minimal.
If they add it. The other thing is when they add, they don't tell you what they add. They don't say, "Hey, this is what we added and this is what it was." So like this one, we got done, and a couple of us were talking about it. And they're like, "Do you remember that one? Like, did I skip that one?" And they're like, "No, that came out about an hour ago." What? Wow. And they push it through on consent. To me, and when we get into it, we can talk about it a little bit. Okay.
Let's just go.
So what that one was consent item 523, and it was last minute. It was given to us about an hour before council, the meeting at 5:30, and quite honestly, I didn't see it come up. Okay. I honestly didn't until it was all, it got added to the consent items. We got the email, something was changed on the agenda, but it doesn't tell you what it is. So you don't know, was it a sentence here? Was it an ordinance thing? What was it, right? Did they add a map? It could be anything. So anyway, consent 523, and it was giving permission for the local fire department, and I want to say the union, to talk to David Warkup, who is one of our outside attorneys. He is our outside attorney mainly on, what do they call it? Eminent domain, on eminent domain, when the city has to take land or do something like that, right? So why would the local fire department want to be talking to him about something? Well, and this is going to come as a shocker to everybody, but if you look back a few months ago, we were talking about the Park District half-cent sales tax, right? And we gave them permission to do it. But at one of those meetings, it was brought up that a public safety sales tax may be talked about at some point too. And I think if you remember that meeting correctly, most of the council was like, yeah, I don't think that's a good idea. We're not willing. We're not. Well, now all of a sudden, I don't know how it got this way, but the local fire department guys, and I love the fire department. I'm not saying they don't deserve everything that they need, and we should give it to them. But they're going to talk to David about helping write an ordinance for a half-cent public safety sales tax. And I'm like, okay, first, didn't we all say about 2 months ago, or a majority of us were like, yeah, I don't think that's a good idea. I don't think I'd be on board with that or whatever. So now, we're going to do that. But I think the question would be, if that was going to be a thing and we're going to give them, right, because they're going to spend money to talk to that attorney, shouldn't we discuss if we're even considering doing something like that before we go ahead and say, hey, let's go spend, a few $1,000s, whatever it may be, talking to this guy about an ordinance that we don't know that we'd ever put through.
Right, yeah, that's crazy.
So that one was, again, a little bit surprising. And if we do it where we get our packet a week in advance, then they have a chance to add things, I think, by Thursday at 4:30 or even say Friday at 4:30, because then you still have Monday to talk to people about some of this stuff.
Right.
So, I mean, that's going to be brought back up. One of the other city council members is fired up that he feels like they snuck it in.
That's
and
not
so
good. That's
we're
not
going to bring it back, and we're going to have a little bit of discussion about it. I don't know that it will change the outcome, but so that was one of the things that when you talk about the city council stuff, we need more time on some of these things, and I understand they have to get everything ready and given to us, but if you kind of get this rotation shifted where we can all of a sudden get it 4 days earlier than we normally get it, and you get everybody on that rotation, it's not a big lift, right? They're doing it already. You just have to alter when you're getting it ready for us. Yep. So that's something I think we'll probably end up talking about at the next meeting too, just because it's going to come up under this stuff.
Budget talks obviously are starting to begin. Any chance of increases in pay for the hardworking city councilman and mayor of Minot?
No, I don't think you'll see any increase in pay for the council or the mayor.
Something we're advocating for over here.
I think you'll see the employees for the city of Minot all get taken care of again.
Wouldn't it be fair if at the minimum the city council received the average raise that was given to the city employees? Wouldn't something like that be fair? I'm not saying that should be done, but would it be fair?
Well, again, I won't answer that question, but I will just say this. For anybody that believes that this is a part-time job and you have all kinds of free time to research things and everything else, the $1,000 roughly we make a month doesn't cover very much of our time.
Barely the gas.
But again, we volunteered to do it, so I'm not going to sit here and say,
I get that.
hey, I need to get paid an arm and a leg for this. I'm not going to say that. I'm here, and I was elected because I thought there was some malfeasance going on, and so we're trying to fix that.
So, do you know this is a topic that I bring up every single time I can right now?
Yeah.
So I should stop because it's really annoying. But oh well, it's a good time. Do you know how much the Fargo mayor gets paid?
I have no idea.
It's a part-time job.
Okay.
Gets paid $50K.
Huh. That's fairly impressive.
That's a good part-time gig.
Yeah.
I'd
Oh,
take it.
absolutely. I mean,
Well,
but again,
but he's
if
he's spending 40 hours, I'm sure.
I was going to say, if that mayor job is like our mayor job, because Tom is constantly going to
Yeah.
things all the time, whoever his mayor was, he makes, I think it's about 15,000 a year. So again, I think it all comes down to what's a person think that somebody doing that job, right? Is it a figurehead job or is there truly leadership there? What's going on? And
yeah, that's the part that's hard.
It is.
Because it's up to the person to make the position.
yeah,
It's not the position that makes the person at all.
nope.
You're not the accountant for the city of Minot, and there's a certain responsibility that's just handed to you by that.
Yeah.
I mean, there is responsibility that's handed to you, but you get to do what you want with it.
Well, that's exactly right. I mean, you just like all of us on city council too, right? Just not even just the mayor.
Yeah.
The job is what you make it. The
Right.
job is as intensive as you want it to be.
Yep.
The job is as in depth as you want it to be. You can sit there and not ask any questions and not really care about what's going on, or you can do what you were elected to do and dig into things and govern and help figure the situations out.
Right. Yeah. Very, very interesting.
So-
I mean, I think we could get the mayor salary up to like 30K and city council up to about 20K.
It's funny because one of my buddies that I met at the Graduate School of Banking in Colorado when I was down there, he lives in Rochester, Minnesota, and he's a banker over there. And when I ran for city council, he's like, "Oh, nice." He's like, "Yeah, our city council members here make like $75,000 to $100,000 each a year." And I was like, "Yeah, we make like $14,000, dude." He's like, "What?" And I was like, "Yeah, it's a part-time thing. It's not full-time or anything like that." He's like, "That's crazy." And so anytime I talk to him, I probably talk to him every 3-4 months or whatever. He's like, "Hey, how's your part-time gig going?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I'm making 83 cents an hour."
Right,
So
yeah, it's ridiculous, man. That's hilarious. Yeah,
but
it's true. That's not important. Budget's coming up though.
Yep.
And there was a budget item that I believe was on the consent items that you pulled, which wasn't for the 2026 budget.
yes, it
but
was for the 25 stuff.
it was for the 25 stuff for sure, and it had
Yep.
something to do with the things we drive on, the roads.
Yeah, the paving, the roads, the microsurfacing, chip sealing, and or mill and overlay. That's
Yeah.
I pulled those two things because, first of all, anytime I think we're dealing with, I think that was $4.3 million, those two things. I realize they're consent items, but I think we should have a chance to talk about them, especially when we're issuing contracts or awarding bids or whatever.
It's a consent item most likely because the funding has already been approved. It's been set
Right.
aside for it. It's just like we're actually going to spend the money now.
Right. And while that's understandable, there's always going to be questions. And in this case, it wasn't that I pulled them because the money was approved or I didn't think it should be approved or anything like that. I had been reached out to by one member of one of the local businesses that owns a paving company here in town. And then after talking with that individual, I had also reached out and spoken with another individual at another paving company here in town. And I'm like, "Are you guys getting to bid on these things? Because so-and-so says you're not getting to bid on them." And they're like, "Nope, we don't ever get to bid on them." I said, "Well, why not?" He said, "Because they don't ask for mill and overlay. They either want it microsurfaced or chip sealed." And I was like, "Okay, so help me understand all this, So they're giving me details, so you're kind of becoming educated on all of this stuff, because honestly, I have no idea. I mean, I worked with some paving companies when I was a banker, so I have a little understanding of it. But anyway, so we go back and we're going back and forth. And so I pulled them because I feel like we can use our local companies, right? And I'm not going to point fingers or anything like that. But we could make the bid request to be, we would like to see this or this. Okay, whichever one your company can do doesn't mean that they're necessarily going to get the bid, right? If they're too high priced or anything like that, we can turn it down. But the fact that we ask for something that none of our local paving companies do, and we know they don't do it because they don't believe in it, it isn't a worthwhile project, and one of them said, why would I waste my tax dollars on that? So these guys that have been doing paving 20, 30, 40 years, they have the idea and they know what works on our roads here in North Dakota, and specifically in Minot if they've been here paving their whole careers. So I'm more concerned not with necessarily how we fix the roads, because there's the wrong way and the wrong way. And as our city engineer said, he's the one that makes that decision. Okay, that's fine. But as I asked him that night in the meeting, if we can get a 1.5 inch or a thin mill and overlay for roughly the same money as a 1/2 inch slurry mix put down on the top of the roads, wouldn't it be better to go that way? Because he kept saying, well, it's overkill. Well, don't we want overkill on our roads? Like if we can get that for roughly the same money and it's gonna help our roads, it's gonna get rid of some of the rutting, the waviness, all that stuff, wouldn't that be the better option? Well, and then he gets up and he talks about, chip sealing's about $8 a square yard. Microsurfacing is $15 a square yard. And I believe he quoted paving, mill and overlay at $40 to $60 a square yard. And everybody's like, oh, well, no wonder we're doing this,
2.5, 3 times.
Yeah. And so we go through the meeting, and there's a little bit of talk in there. And I get home and my phone starts blowing up, right? Like, people in the community that are upset that we're not asking local businesses for bids, or at least not trying to attempt to get local businesses to bid, and people from the local businesses that are like, this was wrong, this was wrong, this was wrong, this was wrong. Not me.
Yeah.
But I'm like, okay. And so one of the things I did was I said, okay, show me something here. Right. So here they had sent me, one of the companies sent me this. They did a 2-inch mill and overlay on just over 1.5 miles of road on Burdick Expressway from 16th to Broadway last summer. Okay. And all of that included concrete work where they had to fix curbs and some driveway type things and stuff like that. Now that road is 60 feet wide. Okay. Because it's a 5-lane road, right? Turn lane too. Whereas, the other one over here, I believe is, I thought it was originally only 32 feet wide, but I think it's about 41 feet wide is what it is on 20th Avenue, right? So it's about 20 feet less wide, give or take. But anyway, so they did Burdick Expressway, right? 1.5 miles with a 2-inch mill and overlay. How much do you think that job cost us? Because now, by the city engineer's standard,
it should be 40.
It should be $3, $4, $5 million, right? I mean, if it's $40, right, $40 a square yard or $60 a square yard, the job cost $860,000. That was a 2-inch mill and overlay.
Gotcha.
And have you driven down Burdick in the last year?
Right. Yeah.
It's a pretty nice road, isn't it?
Ride.
Yeah. It's smooth. It's not.
There's a curve. You have to watch out for the police.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. So you can drive fast on it now because you're not shaking. I keep teasing everybody. My watch is a sports watch. Okay. And so it tracks if I go up and down stairs. Really? I'm supposed to do 10 flights of stairs a day.
So you just drive Minot roads.
Dude, seriously, I'm driving around town and my watch will start vibrating and it'll be like, oh, you reached your goal of going up and down 10 flights of stairs. And I'm like, the road is literally so bouncy that it thinks I'm walking up and down stairs. But anyway, so going back to that. So then I was like, okay, if you guys did that, I said, then help me out. Mm-hmm. I said, just write down real quick. You guys have the numbers, I'm sure, but figure out what your square yardage would be for 20th Avenue from 16th to Broadway and then from Broadway to 13th, because that was where the microsurfacing is going to go down. Okay. I said, don't pull any punches. I said, give me a standard bid, just rough numbers so I can see if you're even in the ballpark. Yeah. Okay. And this is now a 1.5 mil, which is what they call the thin mill and overlay, right? So they'll take the first 1.5 inches off, come back and put a brand new 1.5 inches on, instead of just a slurry mix of microsurfacing that they put down and then it Microsurfacing was invented to take the place of chip seal.
Gotcha.
Okay, so it's very similar to chip seal. It just uses a little bit different stuff in the mix.
And basically, if you had holes in the road, the idea of it is that you throw this on, and then it just gets rid of the holes, and everything is now flat again.
No. So the local paving companies, when they microsurface something, still go out and fill all the cracks in the road and the holes in the road, and then this guy comes over and chip seal or microsurfaces over it. Okay. So it does not affect the base or any potholes or anything like that at all. Right. It is just a
thin sheet that goes on top.
It is a thin coating that goes on top to hopefully protect your road. Okay.
I see.
So I said to the guys, I said, give me a rough number. I want to see this. So they went ahead and they put a rough number together to do a 1.5 mill and overlay, 1.5 inch mill and overlay on all of 20th Avenue from 16th to 13th, right? Mm-hmm. That's almost 2 miles. Gotcha. What do you think that bid came in at?
I mean, if the other... then
860 was birding.
Right, but if we're spending $4 million on it, then it should be like $6 to $8 million.
Yep.
$1 million.
$819,000. And if you listen to the city engineer the other night, he said that mill and overlay costs between $40 and $60 a square foot, or square yard. Sorry, square yard. What's the price per square yard right there?
It shows $12.11.
$12.11 per square yard. So that's less per square yard than we're actually getting charged for the microsurfacing, because he said that's about $15 a square yard, right? Yeah, right. I mean, I don't know. I didn't break out the microsurfacing bill. I don't have the numbers.
I see.
I do know that it's 67,631 square yards, though, that they would need from 13th to
interesting
16th. So ultimately, again, all I'm going for here is, and I'm not poking or pointing fingers at anybody, but all I'm going for here is these people that own these businesses that pay the taxes in Minot, their families of their employees that live here and pay all the taxes in Minot. We owe it to them to give them a chance to at least bid. And if that means that we say, hey, I don't want to microsurface this. Yeah. I want to repair this road. Give me a bid for microsurfacing or mill and overlay, whichever one your company does, and then we can compare all the bids. We're getting them a chance to bid then, right?
Yep.
Seeing this, I would think that our city engineer might want to have a talk with a couple of the paving companies, because the numbers he's quoting, or at least that he quoted the other night, aren't what they're pitching. And that's why I kind of said, hey, but we don't know that if we don't ask them for a bid, right? I mean, we have no idea.
That's huge.
It is. I mean, honestly, to me, it's egregious, right? I like, these people have helped build this community.
Yep.
Right?
They have.
They've started businesses and they employ people and they spend their dollars here, and we turn around and send $4.3 million to Minnesota. That, I'm not saying all of it would have been done in our community, but maybe some of it could have been, right? Yep. I think over the last 2 years, going back and looked, it was somewhere between 9 and 11 million that we've spent for microsurfacing and chip sealing. Right. And again, not all of that would come back here. But what if half of it came back here, right? What if half of that money came back here and was able to, help Bechtold or Keller or Minot Paving or somebody else, whatever company it is, hire more employees and expand. Right. That's good for Minot.
So you're telling me that if chip and seal is that bad and micro sealing, or chip and seal is that good and micro paving is that good, or whatever sealing is that good? How does a company like Keller and Bechtold and Minot Paving, how do they stay in business? Like, what do they do?
Well, they pave roads. They mill and overlay everything, right? Like,
but what I'm saying is, why would other people be paying for it?
Right.
If it was so bad, why would somebody else? Why would it be so good?
Exactly.
Or how could they stay in business without just doing?
Well, and let's go back to the microsurfacing for a minute, right? Every paving guy you ask says it's a dying technology. There used to be 3 companies in North Dakota that did it.
Okay.
They've all stopped doing it because it is not good on the roads in North Dakota where they have snow and ice, and the roads tend to rut based on what kind of aggregate they're putting underneath them, right? Okay. So they've all stopped doing it. There's one guy in a 5-state area that does it. So is it that big of a technology if there's one guy in a 5-state area? Right, yeah. And if he's so busy, how does he have time to come over to Minot all the time and microsurface our roads? And then on top of that, you're telling me that it's good for the community of Minot to only get one bid?
Right, yeah.
Right? Because nobody else is bidding it. There's one guy that bids it.
That's crazy.
Right? I mean, we've complained about that on the freaking flood control.
Yeah.
So this guy wants $732,000 to microsurface 20th Avenue, or a local company without sharpening their pencils at all wants $820,000 to mill and overlay 1.5 inches on the whole road. Which one would you want to pay for?
Well, I mean, the mill and overlay was much better done.
Well, it's gonna give you a better surface. It's gonna extend the life of the road because you're not just putting a Band-Aid on it. So those are the things. And again, I'm not mad because there may be times where an out-of-state bid is the best bid in the best interest of the city. Yeah. But this is now the second or third time where we have local bidders either not getting a chance to bid or being passed over. And to me, that has to be addressed, right? I wouldn't be doing anything for the city of Minot if we didn't make sure our local economy was healthy. Right. And the city being able to employ some of the local businesses to do some of the work healthy, it helps our economy. I mean, it makes it healthy, right? Because if you're going to take that money and send it out of state every single year, what incentive do they have? I mean, they can fill their dance card. Don't get me wrong. They can find work all over the state. But just think about this. I walk in here or, walk into your other job and I say, hey, you're doing a great job. But you know what? There's not enough business locally, so I need you to travel 4 hours away and do it over here. Right. Imagine those guys that work for the paving companies, if part-time, they could be in the city of Minot and be home every night with their families or whatever it is. I mean, just those little things that we don't think about. And I don't know why we would actually have to go and say, hey, you can do this voluntarily or we'll make a motion and you can do it because we've directed you to. Like, why wouldn't we be doing it already to start with? That's my question.
It's huge. Yeah. That was a good action item to get pulled, consent item to get pulled.
Oh, there's going to be more of them too. I mean, it's going to be an ongoing discussion because I'm trying to get a sit down with the city engineer because I want to ask some more questions. I want to be like, so you told us this the other night. Why is this different from what, I mean, again, I'm not trying to embarrass anybody. I'm not trying to do anything, but there's right and there's wrong. Mm-hmm. We all know what right and wrong is. We're all adults. If you don't think that making sure at least that the businesses in the town that you service get to bid on these projects, might be time to move on. I mean, it's that simple. The people that live in this community that pay their salaries, that it was their money that we used to buy that $1 million piece of flood control property. It was their money that we used to buy that $1.5 million homeless shelter. Right. Make sure they get an opportunity to do the work. And if you can't do that, then let's find somebody who can.
Right, yeah. No, absolutely. We talk about economic difficulty and things like that people are concerned about. Well, this is one of the ways where a city is able to help make sure that their economy stays at least a little bit sustainable.
Well, absolutely. I mean, I mean, the mentality is lost on me. I can't, for any way, shape, or form, understand how this is the only way that we think we can do it. Well, sorry, none of the local companies do it that way. Well, then let's give options. Right. Let's give options.
Absolutely.
So
absolutely. Very interesting.
Yeah. I'm sorry. This one really works me up. I mean, this one makes me mad. Yeah. I don't think that anybody's going to like that. I mean, but again, why would you, and here's another thing that really kind of bothered me the other night too. We were talking at council, we were having a fairly decent discussion. And then Alderman Blessum asked a question, do you guys consult with the local companies to see if you need help or how you should do it? Yeah. No, I'm the engineer. That's what you pay me for. Okay. I can understand that. We're not begrudging you what you know and what you don't know. Right. But for you to stand there and say that you know more than people that have been doing something 20, 30, 40 years, like paving in the city of Minot, I don't know if that's the message we want to deliver from the city of Minot, right? I mean, that to me is very condescending, and I'm not necessarily saying that's what he was intending to do, but I don't think it came off well, and I'm not sure that, again, that's the attitude we want to have.
For sure. There's a reason why there's specialists out there.
Well, again, I don't go to the doctor and tell him what I'm doing, or, what he should be doing to me. He tells me what I need to be doing, right?
When it's time for a heart surgery, you don't go to the generalist or the whatever, you go to a heart surgeon.
And you ask questions. I mean, like, my son has a congenital heart defect, so that's probably why you're bringing that up. I ask questions all the time of all kinds of doctors, but I'm not going to take my son when he has open heart surgery here in May. I'm not going to take him to the generalist here in Minot and be like, okay, have at him, man. I'm going to take him to the guy that's been doing heart surgery for 40 years.
Yep,
so,
absolutely.
Anyway.
Absolutely. Next city council's on St. Patrick's Day.
Is it really?
So.
Oh, man, do I got to wear green that day? Dress up?
Probably should.
Should I do my leprechaun impersonation?
I think you should. I think that's what all of Minot is looking for.
Yes, I'm sure that's what it is. So.
Yeah, it is.
What else?
There was something else big that happened, and that was towards the end of city council with a partnership between Minot State University and the Minot Police Force.
Yep.
Minot Police Department. Sounds like a good thing.
Oh, I think it's a fantastic thing. And again, I don't know how long ago it ended. There was a program in place for a long time back in the day called LEAP in the 80s, 90s, and I believe maybe even into the early 2000s. But so they had a similar type program out there. I mean, some of the officers that I know that have retired and everything, they're like, that's how I got my start at Minot. I went through that program. And so the fact that we're able to bring it back, or a similar type program, but that we're getting the buy-in from Minot State, that we're going to help young officers or candidates to be officers see if they enjoy it, if they want to do it, and, give them not only tuition towards finishing it up and then coming to work for us, but a position where they can kind of get their hands. Well, I mean, on-the-job experience is so much better than, hey, sitting in a classroom, this is what it is type thing. So.
Absolutely. So that sounds pretty exciting. Excited to see Minot Police Department look for ways to recruit inside Minot.
And again, I push this out there, right? Trinity, same thing. They have trouble with finding nurses. Why doesn't Trinity set up something similar with the school and use it as a funnel for all their nursing candidates, right? I mean, they have a fairly large nursing program over there, but again, that's where you actually got to sit down and do a little bit of work and try and figure things out. And that's what these guys, Dale and Harold and Dr. Rabe did. And I applaud them for it. I said the other night, great job thinking outside the box on a way. And I heard you guys say this morning, maybe we could extend that to the Air Force Base. Right. I think that's a great idea too.
Let's do it. Let's find some way to get that rocking.
And I mean, that feeder system, it's going to take a little bit of time to catch up, I think. Yep. But once you get that feeder system going, I don't know that we'll ever be short officers in the future, which is, in my mind, is fantastic.
It's huge.
So, and the other thing with it too, if you take a look at the whole program and do everything, what an opportunity for these kids that are like, do I want to be a cop? Do I not want to be a cop? I mean, they get to get in there. They get to get their hands dirty. They're not a sworn officer, but they get to do some of the things. Right. I mean, because there's ultimately always people in every job that get in there and then they get in there and they're like, oh, I hate this. I don't want to do this. And they're gone. Right. Well, you've spent all that time and money training and doing everything, and then you've wasted it. And now, hopefully, we're going to kind of circumvent a little bit of that.
Right, yeah, it seems like that's an even more difficult decision when you're talking about police force and things like that, law enforcement, to go and switch directions. That's a huge thing. So really good that they're able to get that firmed up.
It is. And now, too, Minot, there's a police academy at different locations across the state, and everybody waits, Wouldn't it be awesome if we're able to get a police academy going here too? So our officers from here or locally, we don't have to send them to Devil's Lake or Fargo or wherever else they're doing an academy. We can just do it here.
That'd be huge.
So lots of cool things coming out of the PD now that
we can kind of
getting healthier again.
Get a new direction set. That's pretty cool. Minot Police Department took a hit yesterday as well. With a Beck special.
Yes.
Beck put out this special on a topic that we have covered pretty intensively here at the Dakotan, the Dunseath. We call it debacle. They called it Dunseath Declassified, which is fine. There's also someone else that calls it Dunseath Gate. So there's a few Dunseath names flying around right now. But the Minot Police Department got called out in it. And almost unfairly, in my opinion.
I have wholeheartedly agree. I mean, I saw a portion of it last night. I didn't watch all 15 minutes because I got interrupted. And then I heard you guys talk about it this morning on the podcast. So I went back and watched it all. And I was like, that is the most unfair thing I've ever, I mean, show me some proof. Why are you bringing, like, there is nothing bringing the Dunseath debacle and the Dan Brejo murders or attempted murder of ex-girlfriend and another fellow officer. There's nothing tying those two things together at all. To me, it's very irresponsible.
Yeah, there's that. And then to go and say that the suicides had somehow...
Yeah, that was part of it too.
And Minot's this police department that's in... Brejo was on the drug task force, which connected to him. Brejo is was one of the agents that was in Dunseath looking into the facility. And then Van Pelt was from the base, and supposedly, potentially, the base could have been in charge of getting that nuclear cleaned up, the nuclear parts cleaned up. So potentially, Brejo and Van Pelt, there could have been something between them, a cover-up. Like, you could reach for that, but then to bring in the Minot Police Department and the difficulties that they've had over the last few months and then 2 years, incredible. And then they go and they just slam Klug.
Yeah.
It was interesting.
Well, again, very irresponsible reporting, at least in my mind, because none of it really, there's no proof that any of it is tied together. I mean, they're just making all these accusations, like almost like they're trying to steer you away from looking at the real topic into looking at something else.
Yeah.
But hey, what do I know?
What do you know? Yeah, I know. It sounds interesting. I guess they're going to be doing that for a few more Wednesdays.
Okay. Is it going to be a 15-minute show every Wednesday?
Yeah,
is that
15 minutes at a time.
Wow. So they're going to,
They didn't like our approach. They called out our approach in one of the interviews that the journalist did where we did it. Ours was too long, so they're going to go very short.
That wasn't in the part last night, was it? Okay, I was going to say, I don't remember hearing that.
It was they were doing some press about it, and they mentioned that there was other reporting that had been done, and it was very long form, very monologue, difficult to see everything that's going on. Of course, what we were doing is just laying out the evidence, which they used.
Yeah.
We made a cameo in it.
No, that's awesome. I mean, you guys have done a lot of good legwork on it. It sucks that somebody else can pick it up and kind of steal your thunder. But again,
it's all right.
Whatever that BS that they put out last night was, that wasn't reporting. That to me was what was it? The Daily Enquirer or the National Enquirer on TV or whatever. So
it's interesting. It's crazy.
What else?
That's a lot right there.
Yeah.
It's 56 minutes full of goodness.
We unpacked it all, didn't we?
Yeah.
So, all right. Well, I got nothing else. Thanks for joining us today, guys. This is Let's Talk About It Minot podcast, and we'll see you in a couple weeks.